I don't see it.
Maybe it is. It's recording. Okay. Hi.
Okay, great. Hi,
um,
Kelsey.
so Alisa, tell me about yourself. And I guess I should start and say that the Columbia Art League has these virtual galleries now, and we've found that we can host a lot more art shows by offering people a little extra space through virtual worlds. So that's been really nice to do. And um, Alisa and I are friends, and I've just seen this like amazing amount of work being made from her that she's posting on Facebook and social media. And so I offered her a space for a virtual gallery show because it just seemed like, I don't know, you just have so much going on right now, and it's obviously topical in a lot of different ways. So I would love to just give you space to talk about it and find out more about you as an artist and have you talk about your work. So whenever you're ready, we can get started.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Kelsey, for
Yeah.
having me and for thinking of me. It's so sweet of you. Um, I guess I can just start basically where I went to art school. I went to
Yeah.
VCU for my BFA in painting and printmaking. But my kind of work as an artist started before then. My father was a painter growing up.
Yeah.
And so I always kind of tagged along with him to his studio and met a lot of other artists. And so kind of grew up in a kind of community of artists, I would say, in Virginia, in Norfolk, Virginia.
Yeah.
And so that's really like kind of my background in art, how I got started. Um, and more recently, kind of when the pandemic hit, I was kind of trying to make work more consistently, but it seemed to really provide a space, space and time in the
Right.
evening hours in particular to really
Right.
make a new body of work. And so I think I was just kind of feeding off of everything that was happening around us lately.
Right.
The social issues, the pandemic, everything kind of has gone into this latest body of work. So it's a mix
Yeah.
of painting, printmaking. I guess lately it's transitioned more into photography, collage, mixed media kind of work.
That's so cool. Well, I'm going to share my screen for just a second and kind of show some of the work that I um, pulled up
Okay.
here. Um, there's just things I have
Okay.
on my, am I sharing it? Can you see it? Um,
Yes, I see.
this is some of the ones that I have on my computer that I have been putting online, but also I kind of visit here and there, just like one will pop up and I'm like, oh, hi friends. So I don't know if you want to, I'll just show a couple of them and then we can talk a little bit through them if you want, or through just
Okay,
the process in general. But um, here's sort of, I
sounds
just pulled
good.
a couple that I kind of feel like represent a little bit of um, the different, let's see, um, the different like uh, groups that you're working in, because you have a couple different sort of
Mm-hmm,
series within series. So
mm-hmm,
doing this
mm-hmm.
not very well, by the way, if anyone wants to see. Are we still looking at the same one? Here we go. This should be Balancing on Philly Street series 1.
Yes, mm-hmm,
I
it
love
is.
I love the red kicks. This for me is like, it's because I love red shoes. I mean, there's a lot going on, but for me, red shoes are the thing. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna pop out and pop back in for a second. I'm gonna do, and then there's this one,
Mm-hmm,
which the color in here is so intense, and there's like, for me, there's a lot of different things going on in this one.
mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm,
like it's really intense. It feels like. Um,
mm-hmm.
and then I'm going to show this last one that I pulled up. Again, this probably looks really strange on your end, but hopefully not too weird. Okay, share screen. And then this one I think is just super rad and beautiful and hopeful, and um, I don't know, just makes me feel so good. Um, so yeah, so I'm gonna come back to us, and then I don't know. I kind of want to know where you got your, like, I know you said you visited with your dad and his friends, and you were like in that space, and that is, I relate to that a lot as well because my dad's also an artist, and but he wasn't a working artist. He was just sort of obsessively drawing and stuff at home. But do you feel like I feel like access to arts has been is an issue, right, throughout history
Mhm.
in terms
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
marginalized artists, which in this case
Mhm.
means, means women, it means people of color, it
Mhm.
means all, basically if you're
Mhm.
not white and a man, it means that. So,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
so talk to me a little bit about that access. Do you think that, what does that mean to you to have that sort of person guiding you through that time?
Mhm. Mhm. Well, I think it's actually a really important part of my life as an artist because I kind of took for granted, I think, growing up,
Yeah.
that I was surrounded by artists, and a lot of them were self-taught artists. My father did go to school, I think, for graphic design at a historically Black university called
Yeah.
Norfolk State, but he was always a painter, and so he was always participating in shows and things like that. He always had other jobs as well, but he was really dedicated to his art. And I remember just thinking that, of course, it was the most normal thing in the world to be
Right.
an artist. And I had met a lot of, especially African American artists in my lifetime,
Yeah.
as a child and
Yeah.
growing up. And so when I got to a certain age and realized that for some folks, art was kind of a luxury or a privilege,
Yeah.
it was very kind of moving for me, and it really did inform my path as an educator. So
Yeah.
when I got involved in education and started teaching and things, and I would meet these young brilliant artists, and I was so excited about whatever they did, whether it was painting or
Yeah.
dancing or theater or whatever it was, and sometimes they didn't feel like they had kind of the freedom because of economic issues, other issues, to become an artist. That was extremely kind of heartbreaking for me, and it really
Yeah.
informed a lot of the work I did moving forward. So after teaching in a couple different spaces and working with a lot of cool and brilliant young people who I thought were amazing
Yeah.
artists, um, that kind of informed my kind of education and what I was interested in. So I kind of went and did a degree in arts and education because I was really interested in what was happening with the arts and urban education, where
Right.
young people, especially young people of color, getting access to the arts, in the
Yeah.
way that other folks are getting access to the arts around the country if you live in like a more upper class suburban neighborhood.
Right.
And so that kind of informed my practice as an educator and an arts educator, was seeing that, was meeting just brilliant young people who I was like, oh my goodness, you're amazing. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was so excited for their art careers to start. But I realized there were some barriers um, for them that was difficult, right, in helping them kind of get on their way.
Yeah.
And so I think in that regard, in terms of access, that's kind of been a thorough line throughout my career, the issue of access, whether I'm working in inclusion, diversity, and equity, whether I'm
Hmm.
working as an artist, whether I'm working in education, access is always like kind of a big looming issue. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you asking that question.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it just seems, I think it seems like super integral to your work. I mean, and that would make
Mhm.
sense, obviously. But,
Mhm.
but I think that there's like I don't know. I think that it feels like some people are sort of coming to this revelation, and I think that some of us have been talking about this for a long time. And so to me, I'm kind of like, welcome,
Right,
there's kind of,
right, right.
right, this is a thing. And I think you're right, teaching, although I did it very briefly,
Mhm.
with me and onto some things too. I remember being really surprised when a second grader didn't know how to use scissors. And
Mhm.
she was like, this is
Mhm.
my first time in school. And I
Oh
was
wow.
like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. And she was
Yeah.
like, I've
Yeah.
been taking care of my younger brothers and sisters, and my parents work 2 jobs. I mean, she didn't say all of that, but that's exactly what her experience was. And it was kind of like,
Mhm. Mhm. And I remember
okay.
one time, one of my mentors pointed out that Frederick Douglass, I believe the abolitionist, had written
Yeah.
a piece about how, um, you know, everybody should be entitled to a really robust and well-rounded education. And
Right.
that includes the arts, right? That
Right.
includes sometimes, especially for certain communities,
Hmm.
folks think that, it's only a few subjects are important, right?
Right.
Whereas other folks get access to everything.
Right.
And so I think that, like, of course, all children are entitled to a really full and robust education, and that
Right.
includes the arts. And because we know that's the humanities, and it always kind of scares me a little bit when there's an overemphasis on rigor in
Yeah.
only a few subjects, you know, and all the
Right.
subjects are, you know, important, but the arts really help to make us like well-rounded, you know, full human beings. And so
Yeah.
I always think about Frederick Douglass kind of talking about the arts as kind of a human right for everybody,
Yeah.
when I'm thinking about that issue of access. And it seems really kind of appropriate right now
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
think about Frederick Douglass and to think
Right.
about that he was thinking about that, you know, then as he was thinking about
Right.
those most basic, you know, human rights. And he was also saying, no, we also, you know, we need everything. And so
Right.
I think that's always on my mind.
Yeah, and it kind of makes sense, right? Because, you know, what if we don't share language, what do we share? We share food, because
Right.
that's like
Right.
people could eat all the foods. Well,
Right.
you know, mostly. And then and that tells you a lot about someone's culture, right? When you try
Right.
a different food than you're used to, you kind of can learn even just a flavor profile. You learn a
Right.
lot about someone's
Right.
culture. And certainly art, that you can learn so much, not just about a culture, but just how someone else's experience, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then those places where you connect are the places where hopefully you can, you know, hear someone else's story or listen to what their experience is. So yeah, I mean, I think that that's like makes total sense. Also, he was really smart, so
Right.
I
Just
guess he knew some
amazing. I
stuff.
know.
Yeah, exactly.
Very, very brilliant. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me kind of about some of the pieces that you've been working on. Like what started it, and I don't know, just tell me everything. Like there's so much feeling imbued in all of them, and I relate to so many of them, and I know that that's what we're trying to do as artists. So I think it's so good.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you. I mean, I think there's a lot of gratitude in the pieces, for connection, for relationships, for family, for friends. But also, I think I always, because I'm very interested in history as well, I think there's always kind of the hope that you can kind of connect, um, bring history into the kind of the current conversation in different ways. And so sometimes when I'm working with different photographs, some of those photographs might be from other decades, some of
Mm-hmm.
the figures might be from other decades, and sometimes oftentimes it's my own family,
Yeah.
um, the figures that I'm working with. And so, but there's dialogue across different decades. Some of these folks might not have known each other or been
Right.
alive
Yeah.
during the same time. But I'm working with these different figures, kind of in a, you know, just trying to envision a world where we're more conscious of our support systems,
Yeah.
more appreciative of them, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think during a time like a pandemic,
Right.
I mean, I guess it's not surprising that that theme would arise for me, but
Yeah.
also that layering of kind of the social justice
Yeah.
kind of issues are folded in there, because there's a lot of joy, you know, within, um, you know, Black life, I think.
Yeah.
And but then there's also this other side. There's American history, and there's these pressing issues that have been going on for a very, very long time. But I never want to exclude the joy
Yeah.
and
Of course.
the
Yeah.
richness, you know,
Yeah.
of the culture. Because of course, you know, we're so much more than that, right?
Yeah.
Than the oppression, than the struggle. I feel that so much art has been made. There's so much joy, you know, in that everyday life, especially for me coming from a place like Virginia, where I find um, a lot of just wonderful, rich, you know, cultural
Yeah.
things coming out of that state, you know.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that even though I've lived in other places and I've had a good time living in other places, I think a lot of the work is kind of rooted in that experience.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
That's interesting. I feel like I read let's see, a book by Sally Mann, the photographer, and she talked a
Mm-hmm.
lot about her family's like land. I mean, and I use land meaning that she's a white person who has land here
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
this country, which is not anyway. So
Right.
she talks about that. It's sort of like what that history is with this land.
Right.
She talks about her family and all of these things, um, and I think with a lot of Southern writers, you get that sort of like you can feel how humid it is when she's talking. You know, you just feel how
Mm-hmm.
hot it is outside,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that's a there's something about that particular area. I have some good friends in Maryland, and it's like that
Yeah.
West Virginia, Maryland area in particular feels like I've never seen things so green there. You know what I mean? Like that is,
Yeah.
and coming from California with my first time driving there, and I just was like, there are things growing on the like light poles, and
Right,
there's like,
right.
things dripping down, and I had never experienced that because like summer in California is brown, 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 brown. Like it's just all
Right.
grass. It's all about to be on fire. So, um,
No.
but I don't know, like it just like you get that feeling just from her writing, and I feel like I feel like that probably translates into your work, even though you're
Mhm.
not living there.
Right, right. And I went to college down there, and I think that, of course, I'm very aware of, the history, right, that's
Yeah,
there, that the Confederacy,
yeah,
capital of the Confederacy was in Richmond. That's where I went to college. And, those monuments were always this kind of looming backdrop, as
yeah,
I was an art student,
yeah,
walking up and down the neighborhoods and stuff,
yeah,
these monuments were always there. And I remember asking my older sister, you know, Richmond to me seems like a pretty African American city. Why are there so many Confederate monuments everywhere? And my
yeah,
sister said, I remember her telling me way back then, my older sister, she said, "Oh, people have been trying to get those taken down for years," and I thought to myself, and it was something that always kind of bothered me, but something you
yeah,
just negotiate and try to like live with, even though you notice that there's this. Um, that history was ever present, in
yeah,
this ever changing, city, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so that was very interesting. And now with the monuments being brought down, I was able to kind of have a conversation with that in a couple of my recent pieces, I
yeah,
think. And so that was good for me to be able to process, right?
yeah,
Just through the process of like layering, collage, photography, and all that, kind of work through
right.
some of those issues and thoughts I had from 18-year-old me,
Yeah,
to
yeah,
now. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I really feel like the work you're making right now, it does feel like that kind of like the processing of history,
Hmm.
um, and like not even just your own history, but like this shared collective, like whether it's conscious or unconscious, we're experiencing it,
Hmm.
and it
Hmm.
feels like even how you're laying down paint and that sort of like all that texture, it feels like it's moving. Like there's this sense
Hmm.
of like a like
Hmm.
not boiling like in a bad way, like with anger, but just sort of like this constant movement happening, that it's
Hmm.
like I think we think of
Hmm.
history as being so settled and so unchangeable, and
Hmm.
yet really what it is like us processing it. That's the thing that's keeping that history moving and alive. Now we're re-examining and examining for the first time some of these things that we've hold to be true, and really it's been
Hmm.
true from a certain perspective, right? So it's kind of like, I don't know, it's just really interesting. I feel like that's coming through in your work, that idea that um you're layering things, and then all of this movement is happening, and it's, I don't know, it just feels really alive, and it feels of the
Right.
moment, and I think that that's
Right.
really
Oh, thank
successful.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you. I think that, of course, I'm very aware of some of the nasty history, the current
yeah,
um, difficult, sad, really hard things that are happening.
yeah,
And I think some of these pieces acknowledge those current things, but some of the pieces are seeking some refuge
hmm,
or respite from some of this.
yeah.
Because I think for many African Americans, these issues are present and have been present for a long time. Sorry, there's a
That's
noise
okay.
in the
I
background
know
here.
we've
Some of
got
these issues
family
have
and
been
kids
present.
and dogs, and we've got it all happening. Yeah, no worries.
Wow. Okay.
It's all good.
Sorry about that. But anyway, I was just going to say, yeah, some of these issues, they've been present for a long time. And so I think that because many of us have relived, certain traumas over and over and over
Yeah,
again,
yeah,
from whether it be things that happen in our own families, people that we know ourselves, or seeing it on the news. It's traumatic, and it's happened a lot, in the history and in contemporary time. And so I think
right.
that for me, someone who talks about these issues a lot in my kind of work as an educator, I sometimes seek some refuge, in other ways, or some
Yeah,
respite. And also for my children, especially for my 9-year-old, who I saw the stress of the pandemic and what the impact that had on her. And then
yeah,
also the impact of what's happening socially. While I want her to be informed, I also want her to be able to dream and have
Yeah.
imagination and
Yeah.
have some respite as well. And so it's a mix of all those things, I think, that came together in these latest series.
Yeah. Well, can you talk to me a little bit more about the one with the red background? I'll try to share my screen as you talk.
Mhm.
I'm unsuccessful at this, but we'll try it and see how it goes. See. Am I doing it? Maybe. There we go. Can you see it?
Yes, yes. So this one I made pretty not too long after the killing of Ahmaud Arbery.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of talking about jogging for protest, and of course I tend to center Black women in my pieces for the most part. Most of the time, women are central, girls, women, um, different notions of womanhood and what that means. And so here I have an African American woman running, and I think that, you know, it was just all that the emotion from that recent trauma, and learning
Yeah.
about that is what kind of inspired this piece. And again, it is comes from a family photo. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. It brings up a lot. I mean, I totally get that. And then I also think of sort of the history of women in running as well. Like
Mm-hmm.
that, I think, I can't remember her name now, of course, but the woman who was like basically taken, like a man tried to take her out of the race, like when she was, running in a marathon. She was one of the first marathon runners. And, he was like, he like pushed
Mm-hmm.
her while she was running because he was like so angry that she was trying to participate in this event. It's sort of like,
Mm-hmm.
it just shows, I think, that intersectionality of these experiences a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
where, I mean, I don't know, that in other words, that people can relate to this idea on different levels, and that I don't know, that there's shared experience here that I think hopefully people can then take themselves
Mm-hmm.
outside of their own experience and hopefully relate it to someone else's so they can see that commonality.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
Mm-hmm.
that for a woman, sometimes it doesn't feel safe to jog, which is really
Right.
sad and hard. And then, I don't know. So yeah,
And I
to me,
always feel
this
like I
feels,
can only
there's so
speak
much
from.
feeling, sorry to interrupt
Mm-hmm.
you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelsey. I mean, I feel like I can only speak from my experience as, a Black woman, African
Yeah.
American woman, and that's why oftentimes those figures are very central
Yeah.
in the work, and the experiences of womanhood
Mm-hmm.
continually come to the forefront of the work, and girlhood as well.
Yeah.
And I realize that can be those feelings are universal, across a broad
Mm-hmm.
spectrum of folks who identify as a
Right.
woman.
Yeah.
Feelings of whether or not you feel safe, right? As you were mentioning,
Mm-hmm.
feelings of just some of the patriarchy,
Yeah. Yeah.
that we deal with as women. And then for me, that kind of double layer of being Black in the United States, right?
Right. Right.
So I do think there's a lot going on
Yeah.
in this particular piece.
I think it's super powerful. I think it's great.
Thank you.
I mean, I don't know. I just, again, obviously I like this stuff because I was like, I want to put this in a gallery. I would love to share another one of the works that I had pulled up. Do you have one in particular that you want to talk about? If you can remember, we had I can tell you, I can bring up my absolute favorite one if you want.
Please do. Please do.
I love all the ones of children because we are mom friends. Like we have
Yes.
kids who played together and who are, you don't live here anymore, which is very sad for us, but they, we're friends while we were here and stuff. So
They used to hang out.
yeah, they used to hang out. But personally, my favorite one is actually the one that reminds me of, I don't know. It just seems like a really good, fun time. So.
Oh, yes.
So I just love this. Tell me about this
Mm-hmm.
image and tell me about these people.
Right. So this is a part of a series called the Together series, and
Yeah.
under the Together series, there's a lot going on, right?
Mhm.
I think it's about, like I said, gratitude for connection, for friendship, for family, envisioning, as I said, kind of a space where we're more mindful of those
Mhm.
connections. I think that's what I think in a time where you're worried about everybody,
Yeah.
those connections become more important. And so this is, again, from a photograph that I had that really shows a generational kind of
Yeah.
story. It shares a generational story. And so actually, the child in the picture is my older sister when she was
Okay.
little. And so anyway, I mean, it really does reference this kind of family connection, right? And kind of
Yeah.
growth over time, but resilience, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to be together. We're going to, kind of survive, but we're going to have fun, and we're going to have some style,
Yeah, for
and we're
sure.
going to have some joy.
Yeah.
Right? Even as all this is swirling around us, right?
Right.
And I guess in a way, you could say that, African American women have been doing that for a long time.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that might be kind of coming out of this piece as well, as it has that kind of 70s vibe.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's part of what makes it fun.
It does. I mean, it's like, it's fun. I mean, for me, it's fun and it's warm and it feels like family. Like it feels like I know
Mhm.
exactly how, like the attitude and again, the style that totally translates and stuff, but it definitely feels like, I don't know, like I can hear the
Yeah.
conversations going on, like it feels really invested. And I don't
Yeah.
know, it feels like family. It feels
It's
really good.
very interesting. I just spent the weekend with some of these folks.
You
And
did.
so, yeah, yeah. And so, of course, we had our mask on, and,
Right. Yeah,
and
exactly.
but I think that I've been experimenting a little bit with color in my process, and really thinking about the warmth of certain colors to kind of
Yeah.
express that gratitude, and that feeling of connection and love
Yeah.
and all that and support, that we need to make it through. And
Yeah.
so I think in a lot of my pieces in the Together series, the color palette is very important on the figures.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really, yeah. I like that feeling. I don't know. I think it really comes through. So good job on
Thanks.
that. I think that when you talked about Black joy, that's such an important piece, and I was hoping you could maybe talk about that a little bit more. And I know that there's been a lot of stuff recently about like, sort of like if you're on social media all the time and you're scrolling through Instagram or Facebook or whatever you're following, really make sure that you're looking at more than just what's in your own bubble. Like
Mhm.
follow
Mhm.
and look at more things so that what you're seeing in the world is not just
Mhm.
tragedy or
Mhm.
violence or whatever is out there, because
Mhm.
there's so much other stuff going on. And
Mhm.
um, so I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit from your perspective.
Yeah, I think that there are many ways. Now we can hear doggies barking in the background,
Yeah.
but there are many ways to kind of focus on that. And I think one way is to look at artists, whether it be musical artists or visual artists or dancers or composers, musicians. I think that's where a lot of joy lives, but also in our everyday relationships and connections. And
Yeah.
again, I think that's what these series are seem to be about.
Yeah.
When I
Yeah.
look through them and process
Yeah.
them for myself, I'm sure there's more there, but I think at this time what I'm seeing is that I think of the work of somebody like Bettina Love, who writes a
Uh-huh.
lot about Black joy, especially in education and
Yeah.
things like that. And I think it's really important to highlight that, because we are so much more than, as she says, than this history, than this struggle, than this oppression.
Yeah.
We are full beings with lives and families and support systems and
Yeah.
art forms, right? And careers and loves
Yeah.
and all these
Yeah.
different things going on. And so I think that part of, like, just being human, right, is to show
Mm.
that full spectrum of being. And I think a lot of Black artists in particular are really interested, and I know I am really interested in exploring that more.
Yeah.
And this piece of our history here in this country and our contemporary um, I don't know, struggle here as
Yeah.
well is a piece of the experience, but is not the whole experience, right?
Right.
So it's
Right.
a whole spectrum, and of course I can only show my sliver,
Yeah. Yeah.
from my perspective. But yeah, I think that it's very important for children
Yeah.
to um, to especially for white and black children, for
Yep.
children of all backgrounds, to see that African Americans are rich and complex like any other group of people,
Right. Right.
and
Exactly.
not just simply um, you know part of the story in this country in terms of the oppression,
Right.
but
Right.
not to minimize how important that how important or difficult that has been, but just to say it's a part of our experience but not the whole experience. And I think that's why we see a lot of artists kind of highlighting that joy,
Yeah.
and that beingness, just being.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I think that that's like like how much more relatable can you get than to be, just showing even a slice of life. Like, I think that that's such a, um, that in itself, I feel like all the pictures I'm making right now are like kids on the couch, like it's all
Yeah.
about what's happening inside my home sphere, which is like
Right,
not always
right.
joyful or interesting, but there it is.
But
Um,
it's a pandemic right now, so
yeah,
that is a very real
yeah, yeah,
experience, something that most people can relate to right now,
right.
is
True,
that our
true.
kids are managing and navigating
Yeah,
being at home more.
yeah,
What does that mean to be around us all day, every day?
right.
And so, all those things, I think, also, are working in all of our process right
Yeah, true. So true, so true. Oh man. Well, do you want to tell us anything else? I mean, I just think this is it's just a good opportunity to kind of talk about any of the other work. We have some in our virtual gallery and it's for sale. So if anybody's interested in supporting Alyssa and the Art League, you can purchase something. And if you don't know how to get to our virtual gallery, you can visit our website, and I'll, when I post this, I'll post all the information there too. But is there anything else you want to tell us or mention or highlight or, high five through the screen?
now.
Exactly.
Well, no, I just want to thank you again for asking me to join the virtual exhibit through the Columbia Art League. I really appreciate the opportunity and the opportunity to talk with you today.
Yeah.
And again, I think overall, I just want to express gratitude, that we're here, that we're well, and that we're
Yeah.
able to have this
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that I'm able to just that I'm even able to make the work right now. So
Yeah.
I'm just really grateful overall, and I thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.